Welcome to another episode of How I Discover My Gift with yours truly, David D. Simons. Honored to bring an episode. This is a solo episode. And in these solo episodes, I kind of go more into development out of all the three phases. If you're new to the show, we deal with three areas: discovering, develop, and distributing one's gift. So discovering what God has given you to do, developing that into mastery, and distributing that gift to the world. And in that development phase, there are times where you really need to deal with some things to be able to progress forward so you can go to the distribution phase. And I'm going to be sharing with you some things and some principles around generational curses. Like, that's not what you normally hear on a podcast, right? But I just feel this is a direction to really deal with today. And so we're going to deal with it. So with that said, what are generational curses, right? I get the definition really based on reading through the Bible. You see that when someone has sin or things that go on in their life, they get passed on. Whether you see a habit of, drinking, right, and alcoholism that gets passed on to the next generation of alcoholics, or and there's also generational blessing, right? My father was a doctor. My father's father was a doctor. And then so on and so forth. You see these patterns, and you can't ignore them, right? So you can't, excuse me, you can't ignore these things. That they're there, they're real, they exist, and if you don't acknowledge them, and if you're not aware of them, I believe they can sneak up on you. So today's episode is dealing with the fact that generational curses are sneaky. Generational curses are super, super sneaky. So I'm going to just start off right off into my story. I want to give a disclaimer. I honor my family. I honor my father, my mother. Anything I'm sharing is not to dishonor. It's to illustrate what can happen in families regarding generational curses. Okay, so I want to start off with I want to go into the story of my dad. My dad is a great man. Shout out to my father. There's some great things that he's done, and he's done a tremendous job, better than his forefathers in areas of life. And it's about progression, right? However, there are some areas where I've seen patterns, whether installed by him or further generations before, where those patterns weren't the best. And I actually had a conversation with my father about some of these things. And one of the patterns is, unfortunately, in a lot of West African cultures, primarily Ghana and Nigeria, there's a lot of men who have multiple wives, or if not at the same time, right back to back to back. So my grandfather had multiple wives, right? I don't know if they were at the same time or right after another, but let's just know that he had that. So there was a disconnect there already, right? Just between, all the kids, and you've got, multiple women. And I think creates, like Solomon in the Bible. I don't know how he did all that, having all those many wives. Is, one is a lot to work with. So why have thousands? I mean, and so that's a whole another podcast episode. But here is, and ladies, all the way around, women with multiple husbands. I don't know how that none of it's easy. Okay, so here, check this out. My dad, as well, has been married, I believe on record, 6 or 7 times. 6 or 7, one of those two. 6 or 7 different wives over the course of his life, and for different reasons, different things happen. So he's went from one marriage to another marriage, and things didn't work out. Granted, there's always 2 sides to a story, right? So there's always 2 sides to the story, knowing that. I'm sharing this I'm not just being dishonorable. I'm sharing this to illustrate something about how sneaky generational curses are. So if you look at that, um, hearing that as a child, my dad had multiple wives. My dad also had, you know, a lot of things he had to overcome, and especially health challenges. And he's, survived through a lot of stuff, from strokes to heart attacks. And I believe that's been a hindrance to some of the other areas of his life. For example, my dad went to um, school. Very brilliant man. Was in I believe in Russia, was in the equivalent of NASA. Was working for them, and he has a degree in agriculture. He has a master's in multiple arenas. He did a master's at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. He has a degree from Fresno State University. He's got a degree from Cambridge College. Um, just brilliant man. Just so much wisdom and brilliance, right? He has, honestly. Um, however, um, there were a couple of things he didn't complete, such as going to law school. Didn't finish that. He went to vet school. He didn't finish that. Again, coupled with health challenges and all of those things. Went to med school. Didn't finish that. Went to get his doctorate from Ohio State University, and the Ohio State University, for my Ohio State people. And had to only hand in his dissertation, and didn't get that done, and didn't get that completed. So, now, he had all these health challenges. There's so many different things. So you see the pattern of multiple wives, multiple careers, or multiple things that were left incomplete, nothing finished to the level it should have. And me seeing this, growing up, I said, man, I don't really want that pattern for my life, right? So I gave my life to the Lord, and I think it was 19, and just seeing that, I knew what I didn't want. I didn't know what I really wanted, but I knew what I didn't want. Um, it's around that time I was going to um, pledge for Alpha Phi Alpha. So I'm about to pledge into this fraternity, and I'm just getting to learn God and learn God's voice. And I was like, I don't want to do something that's going to dishonor God. I don't want to, this fraternity thing, sometimes people can get into it and be very, make it their identity and all that stuff. And I was hesitant. I was praying about it, and I got this revelation. God was showing me that, and I didn't want to do it. I didn't really want to go through. I was early on in the process where I could have said, "Hey, I'm not going to go forward," but I heard this from God that, David, I want you to complete this process because I'm going to use it to break the spirit of quitting off of you. So God was showing me, whether I understood it at that moment, the spirit of quitting that was on my father, and probably on his father, was trying to come into my life. Because at that time, before that time, I had just quit engineering. I wasn't passionate about it. I got into digital media. I was starting to see in myself there's this spirit of quitting, that already rearing its ugly head. And so got to go through, and I went through the process. I went through Alpha Phi Alpha, crossed '06 Pi Gamma Centennial Club, Centennial Line Deuce Club. Um, for all my fraternity people, that all makes sense. But basically, I pledged, crossed the burning sands, and it was reassuring because I wanted to quit every single day. Every single day, I wanted to quit, and I didn't. So I pushed through something that I really wanted to quit, and I made it through, which was a miracle in itself. Now, keeping in mind that there's this backdrop of this quitting spirit, as I'm dealing with this quitting spirit, I'm noticing, it has this attitude in me that I feel like after that, a lot of things were broken. I believe certain generational curses were broken. Now, this is where the catchy part is, right? So I'm going to read a scripture verse and then I'll come back to it. In Numbers 14:18, it says, "The Lord is long suffering and of great mercy, forgiving iniquity and transgression, and by no means," here the key word, "and by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation." So this is literally in the Bible, Numbers 14:18, where it talks about what happens. It's not God putting it on a person. It's that its own transgression, its own sin, its own evil can naturally get passed to the next generation, not clearing the guilty. So just because God has grace doesn't mean that the consequences that aren't built in. If God forgives me for lying to a a person, that person still may not want to trust me to do something because I lied, right? So the key is understanding that um, this is not God's desire for somebody to have a generational curse persist, but it is a consequence of having this fallen world we live in, and all these things happen as a consequence built in, right? When you do bad to the environment says, "Hey, I don't like that," and it gives you back something. When you push back against nature or its laws, its principles, there are consequences that are built in, and it's not a person doing that; it's the way the system is built. Okay, so I wanted to give that backdrop as well. Now let's go back into my story of my father, who's gone through all this, and now I'm coming out of this fraternity. I made it through. I persisted despite wanting to quit, and I graduated from with my degree in digital media, and I persisted, and then went to the next level and got my master's in entertainment business, and persisted through that, and have been consistent in that, right? So that's great. I didn't repeat the pattern of, going to multiple different things and multiple different degrees, right? And not quitting, right? So that's one track. I want you to see the other track, right? The other track is that I've been blessed to meet the woman of my dreams, my wife, Abigail, and I've been married to her at the time of this recording for over 10 years, nearly 11. And um, I've been faithful, been with one woman, um, no baby mama drama, no multiple things, dealing with multiple women. I never had to deal with any of that. I made a conscious decision, put a line in the sand that I wasn't, that's it. I get married and that's it. It's done. That's it. We're stuck forever, right? That's automatic. So that's the second track. So let me come back to the first track and I'll jump back to the second track in a second. So somebody might say, "David, you beat the generational curse. Good job. You're not a quitter," which I'm not. I don't quit, right? Um, for the most part. David, you didn't have to do multiple degrees and all that stuff. But guess what? I want you to see how generational curses are sneaky. Now we're getting to the meat of what I wanted to talk about. Generational curses are sneaky because it's not always directly the right thing, like direct for A, apple for apple. Here's how it can work. I have a bunch of online courses that I've bought. Granted, I know a lot of people do this. I'm not the only one. I know you're probably listening. You're guilty of this too. I've purchased so many different online courses. But some high end, 5-figure plus courses. Some, under a couple thousand. Some, hundreds of dollars or whatever it is. But let's just put it in perspective. I've probably got, at a minimum, this is a very minimum, 40 to 50 unfinished courses that I've purchased. 40 to 50 unfinished courses that I've purchased around various topics around finance and business programs and um, personal development, everything you can think of. Like I got a lot of, and I know a lot of people do. Like, David, hey, what's the big deal? We all have that. Like, that's like common in our society. But I want you to see that that's how a generational curse can be sneaky and sneak in, right? So I didn't falter in having quitting multiple degrees. But when you think about it, I've started different courses, online courses, which are still what? They're not degrees, but it's still education. And I haven't completed those things. So I am cognizant, and I don't know where I got this understanding and revelation from, but that just because you beat a generational curse in one way doesn't mean you don't need to look out the back door and see if you're create there's a fine line. You think I've stopped the front door from the curse getting into the front door, but you're forgetting there's a back door to the house, and they're coming through the back door to bring whatever that thing is into your life. And in my case, the front door is the multiple degrees and multiple degrees and multiple women in my dad's life. As an example, I didn't deal with any of those, right? So on the back end, though, I'm dealing with multiple online courses that I have never completed, or some of them I've never even opened, and I purchased them, which is the same as um, going to something and not completing. You get it? You get what I'm saying? I hope that resonates. Let me give you the second track. I told you we come to the second track. The second track, though I've been good and faithful, and I've been a one woman man. I've always declared that, which I'm really grateful for that. The back door is this. My mom, now this is not on my dad's side, this is on my mom's side. My mom is an amazing woman, one of my heroes. And because my dad wasn't there throughout our childhood, my mom had to step in as a single mother to work hard and provide for the family and do all of these things. Now, with that said, my mom had to work a lot. My mom worked 48 hours to anywhere, in some cases, 60 hours in a week, mainly 48, but she had to put a lot of work in. And guess what happens as a result of that? My mom didn't really get to spend the time she wanted with us because she had to provide. So some could call her a workaholic, right? She loves to work. She's great at work. She's a hardworking person. I'm so grateful for that. Now the back end for me is that because I am a type of person that wants to be this good husband, good provider, good all these things. I have dealt with a little bit of workaholic ness in my life, um, in making sure that I'm there. So it's one thing to be married, is another thing to make sure you're there in your marriage to the level that you need to be. And I think I've done a good job, but I could be doing a greater job by making sure that there's balance in this area of working, right? And when you're working hard, um, that seems like it's a good thing, and it is a good thing. But as me and my wife build up a family, I could easily step into that workaholic nature, not because I am doing it the wrong way, because I want to be more like a good example of what my mom has done. But I can also let this generational curse come in through the back door by being an over workaholic, not and then not be present on the level that I need to be for my wife and my family. So I just hope you see that just because you beat a generational curse doesn't mean you don't need to look out the back door. You need to look at the front door. You need to walk at the back door. You need to look at the window. You need to look at every angle, because the devil's sneaky and tricky. I mean, you see this in example through the Bible of Abraham saying that Sarah was his sister, and then Isaac saying his wife was his sister, right? Like subtle ways, and patterns that get repeated. So I just want to encourage you today to look into your past and understand it. It allows you, being aware of your past allows you to be a better steward of your future, right? Some of the greatest and most successful people were only able to move forward after they dealt with their traumas, their past hurts, and these generational curses. So don't allow this generational curses to sneak in your life. That's why I created this episode for you today. I pray continued blessing over you and that you walk in generational blessing. This whole purpose is to encourage you so you can get to the best level, the next best step in your life. All right. I'll catch you in the next episode. Thank you for tuning in.